We're here at Infra AI in San Francisco, and I'm so happy to welcome you, Sylvia Acevedo, to the conference. Lovely to have you. Give us a short background of your own experience and what brings you here.
Hey, thanks a lot, Keith. It's great to be here as well at AI Infra, the Ignite conference. It's exciting. I've had an amazing career journey from being a rocket scientist at NASA, working at great tech companies such as IBM, Apple, Autodesk, Dell. Did a pivot into education, and I saw, the importance of, influencing public policy for the good. I had an opportunity to be the CEO of Girl Scouts of the USA and really interject more of a STEM and new badge approach. 126 new badges in STEM. Millions of girls would earn them. And then after I stepped down being the CEO, returned to my tech roots, and now I'm on two public company boards, Qualcomm and Credo Technology, and I serve on the governance boards there.
Wow, a lot of big brand names there, some great experiences, and a broad set of experiences. So it's such a pleasure to dive into this topic that's so important to you, infra AI. It's obviously surging with all the different challenges within the AI community. Talk to us, introduce us to the concept of sovereign AI as you see it.
Yeah, it's really important to think about sovereign AI because when we think about the World Wide Web and the internet, there's standards bodies and it all kind of works and it's been amazing. But there's also been some opportunities where we moved really fast and maybe didn't quite get everything quite right, like with social media. Well, sovereign AI is now we have AI systems, massively expensive, but they can suck up so much data that there are a few countries or nation states that can create their own version of just the entire AI system that all of their residents and citizens will live under. And, in the US, we sort of have a laissez-faire approach to it, but there are a few countries, Saudi Arabia with their Noam city-state project, but China is one that it has stated that by 2030 it wants to be the worldwide leader in AI. And that is interesting and also makes us pause because the way they control data is that the state controls all the data. And we may think that's kind of esoteric, but if you think about it, so much of the chips and a lot of technology that is in our hands and our mobile devices, it's produced in China. And right now, China is the largest producer of electric vehicles. And when you think about it, electric vehicles, they're centrally run. If you have a Tesla in the United States, if there's an update, Tesla magically delivers the update to your car. If you're stuck in a hurricane and you need some extra electric power, actually Tesla figures out, well, you know what, we've got another way to optimize to get you out of the impending hurricane path. And they can do that all seamlessly and wirelessly. So when you think about a country like China, if a lot of folks are in some countries, like, and I gave you the example today of Australia, they've had a rapid penetration of Chinese electric vehicles. Yeah, the great price. Imagine a state-of-the-art BMW at a third of the price. Yeah, it really got picked up quite quickly.
But you're arguing perhaps that some of these sources, like the cars, are becoming these data sources.
They're absolutely becoming the data sources. And so where are the parameters around that? So suddenly in Australia, you can be tracked anywhere you are driving that car. And perhaps instead of sending you a wireless update that gets your car moving, you get another update that stops your car.
Right. And so that data flows through Australia to China.
Right.
And could be used anywhere else.
Right.
They could restrict its use anywhere else.
Those are some of the questions that we have. And as we're starting on this journey, we are still at a point where those are the questions that are really important to ask. And when you think of the opportunity of AI, it's massive. It's an absolutely massive opportunity. I mean, I use the example of, it took Apple and Microsoft a while to get to the $1 trillion in valuation. As soon as NVIDIA really got the AI machine going, they touched 3 trillion in valuation incredibly rapidly. So we see there's tremendous opportunities. And right now we're in the infrastructure phase.
Right.
We'll next move to the software phase. And then the third phase will be new creations we don't even know of today. And so there's so much opportunity, but we're still at the point where we can be asking these questions and making a difference in terms of policies and regulations.
Right. In terms of policy, are you looking at creating domestic policy or a standards body for worldwide adoption?
Well, so what happened with the internet was we had standards bodies, and that, not perfect, but, worked pretty well. And the US has not taken an approach that it wants to be an innovator, but it doesn't want to be an innovator in the type of regulation of AI. And so then you look at there's another country, two countries, Saudi Arabia and China, that have the capital and the means to create their own AI systems. They can ingest the data and interpret it with their own LLM. So this is an important point where I think people need to begin asking those questions. It's not just an esoteric question.
No. And so going back to the thought of creating policy, what's the best way of moving these things forward? Because we have stubbed our toe a little bit with social media.
Yeah.
That provides a glaring example.
It does. And, who would have thought the thumbs up like button would have been so harmful to so many teenagers, not just in the United States, but around the world. And it seems like that was just a minor thing. But actually, they developed it with people who really understood how teenagers and youth want each other's approval. So it was not inconsequential for what they did. So I think and it's hard to pause, moving at the speed of technology, it's moving incredibly rapidly. But I think this is a time when we're thinking is the rights of citizens or the right of our information, our data,
Yeah.
that who's going to control that? And I think in the United States, that's something we've resisted, and it has worked kind of well, or it worked to a certain extent with the internet. But now you have another country that can create its own version of reality for billions of people and get people who align with them. So maybe their reach is even greater. And I think those are things that are very important to discuss.
We hear some of the voices in the community talking about the acceptance of legislation and
Huh.
government involvement, which is interesting. We also have a lot of other news examples of people perhaps being blocked here in the United States. I reference, of course, ByteDance
Yeah.
and TikTok. But what are you looking for in terms of a outcome in the short term?
So first of all, is really a focus on understanding the importance of this issue. And I think right now it's kind of like, don't get in industry's way. We'll figure it out. Let's just continue to grow. And I think that we want to kind of do that very challenging thing, which is allow business to continue to grow. But also, how do you protect your national interests, especially from defense? I think that has to be something that in the United States we have to have very clear. And if there are other countries that want to be the leader, that means that they will have technology that's greater than ours. And I think that's something that we have to really continue to focus to be on the forefront. And we also have to really look at, we are a government of the people, by the people. How do we protect the people? And protect is, yes, economically, defense, but also their rights from a privacy perspective.
There's a school of thought that there's a winner take all kind of attitude in the AI arms race.
Yeah.
Do you believe that, or do you feel like every country can have its own policy and yet still kind of work together? What do you see as a 5-year horizon? What does that look like in the AI world?
I believe it's probably going to have a couple of axes of interest. There are countries or blocks that will come together and pull in data and reimagine what that will look like with their cultural legalistic lens. And I think that may not be what we might interpret either. And in the United States, we've got algorithms that are ingesting data too. I think one of the things that I do see in the next 5 years, you're going to see policies in place is how do you protect data? Because now what's happening is you ingest data and then they write over it because they go, oh, the AI system now knows it. So the original artifact, this video, columns that are being written, all these things are being written over because they say we've ingested the data, but did they ingest it correctly? Were the inferences correctly? So I think one of the first things you're going to see is how do you protect the original source data? And that becomes a very important issue because, what was true, what kind of algorithms interpreted and inferred that data and made kind of assumptions. And then from there, I think you're going to start seeing moving from there, I think that's going to be one of the first pieces of regulation, and that will be around the world because every country wants to protect its original data and its original sources. Now, very few will have the scale and the capital to create their own AI systems and be able to enforce them.
We have Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Apple, and many others building these huge, you know,
The hyperscalers, yeah. But what's also interesting is, you know, Apple, a great example in the United States of staunch defender of privacy, but it wants to access the Chinese market. And so in China, not such a staunch defender of
difficult
privacy.
line to walk.
Yeah, it's a very difficult line to walk. It's absolutely. So I can kind of see both systems existing, and you can really start to see geopolitics playing a massive role in that because what is real, right? What whose reality? And if you've destroyed the source data, how do you prove it was real?
In your talk here at AI Infra, you mentioned France and how they used data and shared it from the government, shared the data for certain services. Do you think the US government is going to get more involved in collecting the data and sharing it and creating services itself to create either benefit or, to rationalize taxation, et cetera?
Yeah, you know, I don't see that. But I think the French experiment or usage of the Minitel, it really taught them a lot about how people began using that. They connected with one another, and then they began buying train tickets and really. Other than it being such a closed system, they were probably the leaders. But it also taught them because they stubbed their toe first on a lot of social media aspects of it, in terms of privacy and surveillance and others. So that's to me, it's no surprise that the EU is often where a lot of our tech giants are being reined in. They've
And
had quite,
find.
yes, because they've had quite a bit of experience in this.
Great, Sylvia. Any thoughts or predictions that you want to make or goals that you want to set out that you can share with us?
You know, what I'm really excited about is if we get more uh, now what didn't happen with the internet, it happened so fast. But with AI capabilities, there's going to be even more power in the hands of people all over the world. And I hope my goal, I would like it to be more utopian than dystopian, but I hope people become aware that this can be used in a dystopian way. And when you're adopting it, to really be careful and cautious of that, which I think didn't happen with the initial, adoption of some social media and other things.
I like that cautious optimism going forward. And I have to say, I'm glad to see that you're working on it because you have such a great perspective and can maybe bring some semblance to all of this on a national or international basis. Good luck.
Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate this interview, Keith.
Thank you, Sylvia.
You bet.